Hi, I'm Casey Flanagan with ProFood World. I'm here with my colleague Derek Teal, editor-in-chief of ProFood World. And it is a scorching hot day in Chicago today, so I thought I'd take a walk and do a little walk and talk with you. And I see you're doing a puzzle, so tell me about that. What are you making right now?
Well, I'm smart because I'm staying indoors where it's nice and cool but just doing a puzzle. It's one of my favorite hobbies to do, believe it or not. If I get going on a puzzle, I can sit here for hours just working on one of these things. Uh, yeah, I guess I better focus a little bit, otherwise you're gonna lose me to the puzzle.
Absolutely. Yeah, I do love a good puzzle too. So I guess speaking of heat, we should talk about one of the hottest topics at ProFood World in the past month or so, which has been food safety.
Let's
Um,
do it.
so so I wrote an article not too long ago about how AI is reshaping food safety. And a big part of that article was covering what was said at the Binstead lecture, the IFT Binstead lecture 2026. And Dr. Peggy Poole, the president at IFT, spoke at that. And she was talking about the market valuation first of AI and food safety and AI and food and beverage specifically. That was evaluated at about 16 billion in 2025, and it had a 39% yearly growth projection, which might be the highest yearly growth projection I've seen in any statistic
Yeah,
at ProFood World. So,
yeah, that's a lot.
yeah, so I think that really tells that this is not some fad. This is really an industry-changing technology, and you really see it in how much money is going into investments in this. And the article was it was fun to write because they went into some really interesting technologies in it. Some experimental stuff with pathogen detection, as well as some real examples of it of AI in food safety today in the industry. But I think the big takeaway was it had to do with Dr. Peggy Poole's insights on the human element in all of this and how important it is to keep humans in the equation. So I think it's really worth reading the full article to see what they had to say about that.
Yeah, there's a lot of technology that's going on in terms of food safety. Like you just mentioned, AI. The FSIS just introduced a new pilot measure to a pilot program to measure salmonella in raw poultry plants. And the whole point of it is to try to get the window down. Right now, there's a standard of 52 weeks that has to be followed, but they're letting in this pilot program, they're letting uh, manufacturers use biomapping, or they can implement what's called a validated critical control point (CCP) in their HACCP plans. And the data that they're collecting from this, like I said, they're trying to reduce the window, the regulatory window, and it's going to be used. Like the pilot program info from the pilot program is going to be used to inform future regulatory changes in poultry standards. And I thought it was just an interesting what use of technology, because we talk about the regulatory burden all the time, and that how things can be challenging for manufacturers. And I thought that this was an interesting uh, uh, step by the FSIS to allow technology to be used to reduce that window, so that okay, yeah, we're showing that we don't have salmonella in our plants, and it's not a 52-week process, but 13 potentially a 13-week process, because the window isn't just 13 weeks, but it goes up to 52 weeks if necessary. So they're not eliminating it. They're not just saying it's going to happen in 13 days. If there are problems, then it can stretch out. But um, I just thought that was interesting. And our audience, I think, thought that was pretty interesting too, uh, to see how that tech is being used, and to see that there are changes happening with in terms of regulatory environment and food safety.
Absolutely. It's exciting to see like pilot programs happening like that and seeing the technology moving forward there.
Yeah.
Um, and another one that I thought was really interesting from Pro Food World was, and this is not solely food safety. There are a few other elements to this, but mixing and blending. I think there's a food safety element to that it's a really a sticking point for manufacturers and making sure their food safety is on point.
Yeah.
And whether it is quick changeovers or allergen management, combining those two, or
Mhm.
just generally making sure that your sanitation is in order without really slowing down or stopping your uptime. I think the right equipment and what the article mentioned was how the right equipment can be a real game changer in making sure that that you're staying flexible while still mitigating risk. And so the article really goes into a lot of different equipment solutions that cover that can kind of strike that balance. So I think that was another really cool food safety item to check out with ProFood World.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you talked about the right application, right equipment for an application because I wrote an article in June about that appeared in the June issue that was about refrigeration and freezing and how the advancements there are changing it where it used to be ammonia sort of covered the entire plant. Well, it's still doing that, but there are other options coming in like CO2 is being used a lot in plants to cover the whole plant's cooling needs. But CO2 helps with some regulatory hurdles since it's not nearly as noxious or dangerous a chemical as ammonia can be. So, but it's only really going to appear in new construction. You can't really do that in a renovation or anything like that, just because the piping size is different piping sizes and stuff like that. So, it's going to be a challenge. You're not going to rip out all your pipes. I think it's going to be more cost effective to stick with the ammonia than it is to switch over to CO2. But again, there are many safety regulations. We're talking about regulations again that not going to have to necessarily meet with CO2 versus ammonia. There's some steps that you don't run into. But it's also interesting that how nitrogen is being used, particularly talking about chicken. There's one manufacturer that what they show with their nitrogen blast freezers is the use of chicken, or how it uses chicken, how it can reduce the uh, uh, juices, I guess, from
Mhm.
it can reduce that. Like as it sits, gets put into a bin. With other methods, it might uh, maybe get some juices. It might thaw more quickly than if you use nitrogen. And so,
Mhm.
but it was interesting that they're switching, based off of application and need, that it's not just one size fits all solution. There, multiple different solutions for based off of different needs, like you were talking about with mixing and blending.
Absolutely. Yeah, I thought that was a great article saying the pros and cons of each of those options and why a manufacturer might pick each of those. So I think that's a great one to check out. So,
Yeah.
and speaking of refrigeration, maybe it's a good time for me to get back inside. I hear a helicopter going overhead too, so it seems like it's a good time to wrap up. So I think this is
Yeah.
great. Make sure to check out all of these articles in the links that we include in this post, and make sure to follow ProFood World for any further content in food safety or otherwise food processing. So thanks, Derek, and thanks everyone for watching.
Thanks, Casey. See y'all later, guys.